Hello, I am Liam Slater, and this is This Week I Watched, where I talk about the wrestling that I've watched this week. Alright, I watched a ton of stuff this week, and I want to make sure that this is short and snappy, so I'll get straight into it. Kicking off this week, I watched Leon Slater's two-night run at GCW. I've not caught his other ones, but I watched him against Tony Deppen, and I watched him against Nick Wayne. Leon's a star, it's easy to see. There's a reason why he's absolutely gone above and beyond what anybody expected or thought was possible, and he's just killing it. So to talk about the Tony Deppen match, it's a matinee show, so the crowd are a bit quieter. It's very US indie, but that's exactly what GCW is, and that's exactly how you stay there and then continue to grow on from there. Tony Deppen is a mainstay at GCW. I think there's a reason why he's a mainstay at GCW. Leon doesn't look out of place with him. I think chemistry could probably be better, but you're going to run into that along the way when you encounter people that, are from different circles completely. This isn't even just looking at a UK guy and a UK guy. This is now a US guy and a UK guy. Different experiences, different upbringings, different backgrounds, all those sort of things play into it. But the match itself moved real nicely. I would say it's more of a Tony Deppen match than it is a Leon Slater match. But the match that I would go out and watch is Leon Slater against Nick Wayne. There's some really standout moments out of this. There's a backflip to kick spot that's just really wonderful. You may have seen it on Twitter probably. I think one of the things that Leon doesn't get enough credit for is his selling. His selling is wonderful, and he's very, very good at consistently keeping a sell going throughout a match. I think we're seeing a bunch of first-time matches from Leon at the back end of last year going into this year, and probably for the rest of this year. This Nick Wayne match, I felt like there was way more that they could have got out of it. Zack Sabre Jr., I felt like there was way more that they can get out of it. To make a prediction, I reckon that Leon's going to wrestle Will Ospreay this year, and I reckon that match will be something where there'll be way more that they can get out of it, which is good, because then he's got room to grow into it. It didn't look like a final product. It looked like something that they could get more out of. So Leon, if you could come home, that would be great, because we all miss you. But in saying that, he's absolutely killing it. Mega proud of him. It's awesome to see. Those were the only matches that I caught from GCW. Again, I'm very much I'm going to take a little bit of time here to watch a match, so I don't get to see the full show. I think GCW do a really good job of creating a third company vibe. So I say a third company in the same realm as ECW or ROH, where it's the alternate for the wrestling fans. Now, that means that there's a mix of talent through there. It probably leans more on the ECW side than it does the ROH side. But I think they do a really, really good job of creating a niche and creating a crowd that are super, super invested in GCW stuff. Ironically, I saw it from Leon. There's a guy called Tony D that does video production stuff, and he did a highlight video to both nights that Leon was on, to Black Eyed Peas songs, and it was well good. And I looked at it and I went, damn, that's a cool company, and I think they do a really good job of being cool and being present. Next up, I watched Speedball Mike Bailey against Kenta from Wrestling Revolver. This is probably the first time, I think it's the first time that I've ever watched something from Wrestling Revolver. I may be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure it's a John Moxley company, or Sami Callihan, or something along those lines, or they're pretty heavily involved with it. The production is excellent. It looks extremely good. Annoyingly, they do their own online on-demand service, and it's just not a product. It's just not a product that I'm like, yeah, I will invest money into this, because I'm just not going to watch enough out of it. But they put some on YouTube, and I'll give it a watch. So the production is extremely good. I think that goes a long way to helping a wrestling product, and getting it engaged with fans. If the product looks good, it's way easier to sit and enjoy it. Whereas if it doesn't look good, if it feels empty, which is something I was talking about last week when it came to some of the companies on IWTV, I think then it's harder to keep an audience engaged. In saying that, this style of match, and this is probably something that you'll pick up on from listening to me if you know me and you talk to me, I'm very much like a wrestler's wrestler in terms of what I enjoy watching. Mike Bailey and Kenta is very much a strike-based match, and I'm not a huge striking wrestling fan. which is just not something that I'm engaged in. So it was a bit more of a slog. I felt like I was sitting through it a little bit more. Whereas I guarantee on the flip side of that, there's people that absolutely love strike-based wrestling, that when it comes to map-based technical wrestling, they'll go, this is really boring. So it's all perspective. It wasn't massively for me. Speedball kicks the ring post at one point on the outside, and it just feels like it's forgotten about, which is a real shame, because surely if someone's throwing kicks and then they kick a ring post, that'd really kill. So then that could be an entire story out of the match, and it just sort of felt like it was a moment that happened and got forgotten. In the same way that last week I was talking about the Steen and Nigel McGuinness match, where Steen takes the fucking horrendous bump into the apron, and it's just sort of forgotten about. So I'd like to have seen that story. Kenta has a really weird relationship with the go to sleep. So the go to sleep is his move, but most people will know it from CM Punk. So there's one point in the match where he does the go to sleep pose that CM Punk does, and then flips off the audience. And it's Kenta's a heel, but gets cheered quite a lot because he's Kenta and he has the respect level out of it. And I just felt like it was a really weird dynamic. Again, it's not to say like he's doing it right, he's doing it wrong. Just sat really odd with me, because it was like, so do you want the fans on side, or do you not want them on side? Because then you are going for the go to sleep. But it is his move. Fight Forever chants can die. I hate them. Who actually wants that? I can get my head around the concept of it, but I hate it. Nobody's going, damn, you know what this match really needs to do? Go on for another 5 hours. Nobody's ever saying that. So I just started that chant. If it comes up, I'll flag it. It's annoying. It's a really odd finish. So Kenta hits a flurry of slaps. Mike Bailey drops Kenta. Obviously calls something, and then Kenta hits 4 lines, hits an ear, hits a seated knee for an ear, go to sleep, finish. So like you can see the call happening, and it's like 4 lines, hits an ear fall, seated knee, that's an ear fall, go to sleep, finish. It was just super oddly placed, almost like something was cut out. Maybe they were going long and they had to finish there. Maybe Mike got injured. Maybe there was just a feeling that it's like, we need to go here. But it just felt odd from watching it from an outside perspective. But in saying that, I think the audience really enjoyed the match. And I think a lot of people would call it Match of the Year for Wrestling Revolver. Mainly because of the names that are in there and the prestige that they've got around them. Not necessarily for the actual match itself. But overall, I thought it was fine. I thought it was a decent match. It just wouldn't be something that I would go back to, nor was it something that I was like, damn, I'm really super invested in this. I think mostly that comes from the fact, though, that I don't massively enjoy that style of wrestling. Modern Nomad have recently uploaded a bunch of their shows, and we watched the final Tuesday Night Graps show on their YouTube. So if you're interested, head to their YouTube. They're one of the more known companies in the UK. So we tried to watch the entire show. We ended up skipping most of the second half just due to time. We were just like, we need to be going to bed now. And again, it's committing to a full wrestling show can sometimes be quite a chunk of time that you're dedicating into it. I think there's some really fun concepts at Tuesday Night Graps, like keyboard deathmatch, really fun. The multi-man stuff that they do is usually pretty fun. The Bandersnatch match, really fun. Like they've got great concepts, and I think that Tuesday Night Graps is at its best when it's at its silly bollocks nature. But my main thing is just how long the matches feel like they go sometimes, and they can end up being. The roster has fun, the crowd do have fun, but I think they'd have more fun if that content was really pulled in to then go, cool, here's the main bits, now let's get out. I think it'd run quicker, and it'd keep an audience engaged that little bit more. Again, I think the concepts that they go for, and when they do high concept wrestling, that's where Tuesday Night Graps stands out at its most. And I think there's a creativity within British wrestling that is unlike pretty much anywhere else. And when you are allowed to do that, it really, really shines through. I just think sometimes people are like, yeah, and then we do this wrestling bit. And I don't feel like it really necessarily needs that bit out of it. But I can also understand why people would want to do that. And it's this fine balance that they're trying to create between, hey, here's all this fun stuff, but then also remember that we're really good wrestlers. But then I do think that people remember that they're really good wrestlers anyway, and that's not massively what people are going to Tuesday Night Graps for, in my opinion. But overall, felt the show was really fun. It had some really fun moments into it. It's just a case at points I was like, okay, this is getting to be a little bit of a slog. So recently, New Japan Pro Wrestling had their Wrestle Kingdom 17 show. It's their big show of the year that happens at Tokyo Dome. And if you have been online, you've probably seen that Ospreay and Omega had a pretty good match. And yeah, it was pretty good. I'm saying that sarcastically. It was a fantastic match. It was an extremely good match. Really well told story. Really well built moments through it. The execution on everything is just crisp. Like, there's a spot where they go tiger suplex from the top, Ospreay lands to feet, doesn't take a step, 720 kick, nails Kenny in the back of the head, gets up, all's cutter. With just minimal footwork around it. I thought the story that they told around the back wasn't super in your face, like, oh, and I'm working his back, but it was subtle enough that you could stay with it. Again, like, the execution on everything was just two guys at their prime. Omega probably isn't at his prime anymore. He's probably slightly past it, and I think that's exactly what this match needs. I think this is a passing of the torch. I think, I'm going to, spoilers ahead if you want to skip the next, 10, 15, 20 seconds. Ospreay loses to the one-winged angel, which Ella detests because it's called winged and not winged. Anyway, loses to that. I reckon they go again next year. I'd be extremely surprised if this match isn't booked again next year. They go again next year. Will kicks from the finish, and then they go to 45. And then probably, more than likely, get the highest rated match of all time from Dave Meltzer, because he's in with it and he's working everybody. But that's my opinion. But, I mean, overall, the match itself was just incredibly good. If you get a chance to watch it, do. Will's selling is excellent, which is ironic, because way back in the day when he was just kicking up, the amount of people that was like, oh, he can't sell and he can't do this. He can do everything. And I was speaking to Nathan recently, and he was asking me if I felt at all jealous about what Ospreay's doing, just because we sort of came up at a similar point. And honestly, no, I don't, because there's just no comparison out of it. There's just different levels that people sit out, and he is at a massively different level and just went on to absolute stardom. And there's a reason why. I remember watching him. I've spoken about this story a couple of times to a couple of people, but basically he was in a tag match, and he ran the tag match himself. He'd obviously planned it, and every time that he got in the ring, he just lit it up. And then every time he stepped out of it, you could see the quality diminish. And I sat there and I watched it, and I went, damn, Will's incredibly good at pro wrestling. And that's obviously coming to a forefront now, where you'd have to say that come down the line, he's probably going to be in consideration for greatest of all time, which is mad, considering that a lot of people that I train with and probably listen to this have had interaction on a lower level with him. Now he's often being a star. And also, to touch on presence and stuff like that, Kenny Omega is incredible at presence and just holding attention, and the movement that he gets and all those moments and knowing how to create a moment. He's one of the best at doing that. I suppose I should also talk about the wrestling that I've been doing. So Saturday, which I'm recording this on Sunday, this will get published Monday. So Saturday we had the Rise Rumble. I had a four-way. It was myself, Joe Wade, Jet Marshall, and Ellis Barker replacing Leon Slater, who is currently in America. We did, I think, a couple of seconds under 4 minutes. We were going fast. It was sprint season. I had a crop top on. I had a wonderful time. If you get a chance, it's on IW.TV, and we'll be streaming, and also Rise will have it on their Patreon as well. I'm very happy with it. To go insider stuff, we were told, go quick, action-packed. And I felt like we delivered that. For the audience that was there, Broodnell Social Club is a lot of casual fans, or fans that they wouldn't call themselves wrestling fans, but they enjoy wrestling. So to give them more, I think they would have just started to lose patience and interest out of it, especially given where we were placed in the first half. We were like, after a segment, the next match going in was like a segment into like a match stuff, so we just needed to go in, create action, stuff like that. And then I watched the Rumble, which was good. It came together really nicely. Standout moments, Jack Bandicoot. Hopefully he has a fucking fantastic year in 2023 because he deserves it. But overall, it moved really nicely, well paced. I think the audience enjoyed it. I think Rise has a really interesting audience base of people that are casual fans that then will come to Rise on like a fairly regular basis. So they're not deeply ingrained in wrestling, but they do know wrestling, and that's an interesting one to work in front of. So basically, the way that I judge it, if I come out, I'll let the crowd read me, and I'll read the crowd. So when I came out, it was a pretty mixed / quiet response to me, which is fine. That's exactly what I'm looking for in terms of the character that I'm portraying. But then I go, cool, this audience isn't particularly familiar with me. That probably, well, it means a couple of things. They're probably more casual, or they're probably not acquainted with me. Whereas in the Northeast, 9 times out of 10, I'll come out, there'll be big noise. We've been wrestling a lot at PPW. There's a regular amount of people that come to that now that gets a regular noise out of it. When we went to Progress in Manchester, I got a quiet reaction. That's because there's a lot of people there that have gone to Progress because they recognise a couple of names. And also, I don't wrestle out in the Northwest a lot. So with that, there's a lot of people there that don't know who I am. That's fine. In Leeds, that's a little bit more of an irregularity. So with that, I was like, okay, cool. There's quite a casual audience here. But if you can capitalise on it and engage them and keep them in, happy days, you winning. But yeah, that was Rise. It was quite fun. IWTV, Monday the 16th, if you want to get a watch on that. So then that takes me to Sunday, which is today, the day that I'm recording. And I feel like recently I've not watched a lot of like World of Sport stuff. So there's a YouTube page that I follow, which is Dale Martin Productions, I believe is the YouTube channel name. Just had a quick scroll through there. I found a match which was Dynamite Kid versus Tally Ho K. Dynamite is like 17 years old in this match, and I think Ken Walton on commentary says that it's like his second televised appearance. Interestingly, it's a one-fall catchweight bout in a tournament. So for those of you that might not be familiar with World of Sport rules, or like Lord Mount Evers rules as the official name title, more often than not, it's the best 2 out of 3 falls by pinfall submission or referee's decision. Also, usually, 9 times out of 10, they're within a weight category, whether that be lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight, but they're usually within that. Catch weight means that it's between 2 different divisions. So, Dynamite Kid is very light. Tally Ho K, I believe, has about a stone weight on him. So that plays into the match. I think something as well that people really struggle with when it comes to World of Sport is that it's very much presented as a real contest. Obviously at the time it's not well known that like it's a work. A lot of the audience are going to watch it as if it is a real sport, and it's very, very much presented like a real sport. What's interesting about this match is that it's super, super sports entertainment. Tally Ho K, whose name is Peter Kay, who's from Lancashire, which is fun considering the comedian. Also, they're at Royal Albert Hall in Bolton, so there's plenty of Peter Kay stuff going on. Tally Ho K is a character. He's a character that like is basically like a posh horse rider type of thing, but cheats and uses the ropes and all that sort of stuff. And he's very pantomime. What's also interesting in this match is that you've got Brian Crabtree as a referee. The Crabtrees ran Dale Martin Productions, or Promotions, sorry. But he's a referee in this match as well. And he's massively involved in it. Like, there's points where Tally Ho K is holding the ropes and Brian, like, kicks them off. Or, like, there's one point where Tally Ho K grabs the ropes. Dynamite has his feet. Brian takes hold of his feet. And then Dynamite leapfrogs him to like land on Tally Ho K a little bit like the world's greatest tag team spot that they used to do. And there's a load of involvement from the referee, and it's very, very sports entertainment. And the crowd are eating it up. I think some of the reason they're doing that is to protect Dynamite Kid, because he's still very new into like the pro game, as Ken Walton calls it. But then also I think it's to protect Tally Ho K and to protect his integrity. If he just loses to Dynamite Kid, who they obviously want to build up, who they see a lot of future in, it doesn't do anything for him, doesn't keep his heat. Whereas a 1-fall bout means that he can say, well, he didn't beat me in a 2 out of 3 falls. I'd have beat him, I'd have had him in 2 falls. Also, with the referee's involvement, he can go, the referee got involved. And he sort of says that as we get to the end of the match. He's kicking off that he was talking to the referee when he got rolled up. Just all these things that keep both men moving forward. Gives Dynamite a win to put him through into the tournament so they can build him as somebody that's interesting. And then also it keeps Tally Ho K strong, so then they can use him again as a prominent heel within the area. The match itself moves pretty nicely. There's some standard World of Sport things in there. There's a lot of cheaty bits in there. There's one really nice spot where Dynamite goes to Irish Whip Tally Ho K, which you don't see a lot of within World of Sport, but Tally Ho hooks onto the rope. They then repeat it again, and Tally Ho goes to hook the rope, but he's not close enough to the rope, so misses it, and then gets whipped. And there's a lot of subtlety that I think happens within World of Sport stuff that if people go back and watch, they'll realise, oh, that's why that happens on a regular basis now, because back in the day something happened that then just got used to an extent. Say, for example, the sleep or the trip would have been more than likely to work on a regular basis for then it to go over for people to start doing leaps and that sort of stuff. So there was just a nice couple of moments in there, but it's a quick, easy watch, really. Not something that I would particularly go back and watch again, though. And then finally this week, I've been really, really out of the bubble when it comes to AEW. Just sometimes I'm super on it, and then other times I'm completely missing the mark on it. So I spent a bit of time today and watched a bit of Dynamite. The new set looks really nice. I think the production value's up. I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with LED screens for entrances. I think it looks great. I also think it loses some of the character that it has. But that's probably because I'm a late 90s, early 2000s fanboy who loves big pay-per-view stages and stuff like that. But in saying that, you can't knock it for the value or the production value that's there. 2 matches that I watched through Dynamite, Danielson and Nice. I really, really like Bryan Danielson. He's probably in my top 2-3 of all time. I think he's class. I would say Danielson is the greatest of all time in terms of being a variety wrestler. Wherever you put him on the card, whatever role you ask him to do, he excels in it. And he's just fantastic. Nese is an odd one, and that whole team, there's Tony Nese, there's Joshua Woods, I might have said his name wrong, there's Mark Sterling, and I feel there's something about him that I go, I should like you. I should like Tony Nese more. He's in great shape, he's real athletic, all that good stuff. Joshua Woods, I'm pretty sure he's not called Joshua, I might be saying that wrong, Technical Beast. He's someone that I as a wrestling fan, I should be like, yo, this is my dude. He's a big dude. He's got big legs. Don't wear knee pads. Does technical wrestling. Does throws. I should be there with him. And I just can't get invested in him. And I can't get invested in Tony Nese. And I think a lot of that has to do with the placement in the card that they're at. This match serves as a match for Danielson to then go to a promo with MJF. So when it comes to that, they had, I don't know how long they did, probably about 5-6 maybe. It was super by the numbers. It was a quick cut off for Nese to be up a little bit, to then go into a go home stretch from Danielson, and they were out. And that's all it needed to be, because the important bit of this angle was the promo at the back end. Tony Nese served his purpose. Danielson got in, did his stuff, gave the crowd a bit of Danielson stuff that they know and they enjoy. But this was never going to be a 5-star classic, mainly because of the position in the card, what was coming after it. But it was fine. Again, is it something that I'd go back and watch? No, probably not. In terms of stuff that you can take away from it, I think sometimes you've got to look at the card and you've got to look at what's coming up and go, what do I need to do here to facilitate this? In the same way with the 4-way that we had at Rise, we got told, go out, give them action. We gave them action. When it came to Dynamite Kid and Tally Ho K, we need Dynamite Kid to go up. We don't want to lose the integrity of Tally Ho K. Cool. How do we work around that? I think that was this match. And then the second match that I watched from Dynamite, again, I've not had time to watch it all, so I've picked out matches. AR Fox versus Swerve. I thought it was a really, really fun match. I think Swerve has a great presence around him. I think, personally, you could probably make him a main eventer. Like, I could see him with the top belt. I think he needs a little bit more push behind him. A couple more stories behind him that get an audience invested into it. I get why he's got like a group with him. I don't think he needs it, but I can also see why. And I think it fits like the aesthetic that he has. But I think he's got great presence. It's great to see AR Fox getting like some mainstream attention and some mainstream plaudits. Obviously, he's been kicking it like a long time. And for the stuff that he does, I think he's very, very innovative. So it's good to see him on AEW. I think a lot of people would probably roll their eyes at this match. There's a lot of gymnastics that go into this, a lot of here to here to here. You can feel them working together to create the timing, to create the moments. But for that style of wrestling, I thought it was excellent. I thought it was really, really good. It was just fun to watch. And I think sometimes we can get a bit bogged down in sometimes fans can get a bit bogged down into, well, does it make sense and does that go to here? And they're looking for a realism, almost like the World of Sport stuff in a sense. But then these two guys went out, they had a really fun match. It was really engaging, kept me interested all the way through, and had some really nice moments into it. Were they doing a lot that's hard to top in terms of if they were to come back to it again? Yeah, probably. But did they have fun, and would they make that attempt to try and top it? Absolutely. What's interesting to watch about Dynamite matches, especially if you're watching on Fight, is that when they go to picture-in-picture, it's trying to pick out how the action slows down, how they keep it ticking away. And then what I like to try and do is try and see when the referee's calling that they're coming back from the ad break for them to kick it back into action again. I think it's just a fun bit that you wouldn't necessarily have seen, well, you didn't see back in 90s, 2000s for television wrestling. They'd go to an ad break and then you'd never see that middle bit. And now we can do. And I think that's really interesting as a concept. And I think it almost puts more value into that ad break. I'd love to see a match finish in an ad break. I think that'd be really interesting, but that's quite postmodern of me. But overall, for the Swerve and AR Fox match, I thought it was fun. Like, it was engaging. There's a couple of like cool spots in there. I would imagine a lot of people would go, not my match, I don't like this, I bet they can't throw a working punch, etc, etc. But fuck them, because I thought the match was really fun and engaging. And I would say it's worth a watch just because it's fun. To conclude with, overall this week, I think I've had quite a mixed bag of wrestling. Main things that I've tried to take away from this is people's presence, how they're holding themselves. This is a wide range of it, but like Leon, absolute megastar through it. I think Kenta holds himself very well. I think Speedball Mike Bailey holds himself very well. Ospreay and Omega are both mega stars. You can see little inklings from Dynamite Kid of somebody that's like, oh, okay, he can go somewhere, but nowhere near as refined as he is in years to come. And what's mental about that is Leon and Dynamite Kid are similar ages at that point, and Leon's head and shoulders above. This is not a podcast about me putting over Leon Slater. And again, like, Danielson has a great presence around him, a great confidence around him. And I think if there's anything to take away from it is looking at these people and going, how do they portray that confidence? How do they keep that confidence coming through them? And usually it's because they're relaxed in the moment and enjoying themselves. And the more that you can try and enjoy yourself, the better. Next week, I'll be watching some more wrestling. Also, for my own wrestling stuff, I'll be at True Grit Wrestling. I'll be wrestling Sexy Kev Lloyd in a pure grit rules match, which is all about submissions and rounds, and a little bit similar to the World of Sport style. So I'll probably watch some more World of Sport stuff. I've been Liam Slater, and you have been listening to This Week I Watched. Thank you very much.